Hi, I'm Jaclyn.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Caffeinated Crimes, where we talk to you about crimes and apparently lately just a bunch of mass shootings because there's literally been one after the other in the United States in the last couple of weeks, which is just really sad, and it just really makes recording a bigger bummer than it is normally when we just talk about other true crime cases. So
Yeah, we've started a new segment, and I'm ready for it to end.
yeah,
I don't like it.
We don't like this
I'm not
segment.
a fan.
We did not sign up for this segment. Not good. So last week, again, you guys know we record ahead of time, but last week there was another mass shooting in Orange, California by Aminadab Gonzalez. Apparently he had some personal vendetta against this real estate office, so he walked in and started shooting, and those victims were Luis Tovar, Leticia Guzman, Genevieve Regoza, and Matthew Farias, who was only 9 years old. So,
Which is so sad.
yeah, so sad. Courtney and I watched a news clip with his father talking, and it was just heartbreaking and just so sad. And at the time that mass shooting occurred, which is even now outdated, at that time there have been 125 mass shootings in the United States in 2021, which we are 3 months into. And a mass shooting is defined as 4 or more individuals shot at the same time in the same general location. So, between this one and the next one that we're going to talk about, I saw a lot of comments on news articles about, the leftist agenda and what constitutes a mass shooting because not enough people died if it's only 4 individuals. What? How is that?
Yeah.
How is that your mindset? How is that your takeaway from that?
I feel like that shows how, desensitized and jaded that America has become to mass shootings, where it's like, there's another one, and oh, well, not enough people died. I mean, look at the Las Vegas one, 50 people died, or, whatever.
Only 4? That's not a mass shooting.
4? That's not that much. That's just a little dispute. But it's no, this is an issue.
Yeah.
And it's a big issue, and it's just really disheartening.
And especially, not to get into the psychology of mass shooters, but this isn't you had a personal vendetta against one person and you went in and shot them. You had a personal vendetta against one person and you went in and shot a bunch of people. That's where the difference comes in here. And again, it's 4 or more people shot. So just because the shooter didn't kill all of them, even if they shot 20 people and only 2 died and you want to claim it's not a mass shooting, it's not based on the number of deaths, people. That doesn't make any sense.
But yeah, it's just really disheartening. And the day we're recording this is April 4th. And so we've already had this many mass shootings. How many are there going to be for the rest of the year when things do really start opening back up? Where people can safely, go places. It sucks, man.
Yeah. It does, and it's so sad.
And speaking of that, there was another mass shooting actually just last night, I believe it was.
Yeah.
So from when we're recording this, which was, I said, April 4th again, and it happened in Wilmington, North Carolina. And so 22-year-old Zaya Wade, 21-year-old Shamir Jones, and a 16-year-old female whose name is being withheld due to her age were killed in the shooting, and it happened just a little after midnight. And Keyshawn James, Zykeria Crawford, Valerie Orleus, and Zymerian Atkins were injured. I am sorry if I butchered those names. There really hasn't been much because it just happened 10 hours ago.
Yeah.
And so at this moment, they really don't know the motive or who the shooter is. Not a lot of information. It was a house party. We don't know how many people were there. We don't know if it was someone there. Maybe, once the shock comes down a little, they can interview, the other people there and maybe figure out some more information. And we'll let you know if we do have an update on that.
Yep, definitely. And I don't know if we've mentioned this before. I know I've mentioned that I used to live in North Carolina, but I used to live very close to Wilmington, so it's very, one of those that's close to home. And based on the ages, I'm guessing it's a lot of, I'm guessing they're all University of North Carolina at Wilmington students because that is the big university there. they are all around college age. So again, just super sad, and we just are ready for this ongoing segment of the podcast to end. So
yeah, because again, I talked last week about how you can't go anywhere, and now you can't even have a house party at your own house. You can't.
Yeah, right?
You can't do anything, it seems. And that just really sucks. So I don't really know if anything will happen, if anything will change. I'm jaded, apparently, when I think of the U.S.
Yeah.
But hopefully something happens so that people just stop losing their lives in these just, like, senseless murders. Like,
yes, agreed.
So this is a little off topic, guys, but we decided, Jaclyn doesn't know what's coming, so we decided that we needed something a little bit lighter. So I had this thought this week, and I'm going to get Jaclyn's opinion on it. So I just started Barack Obama's new book, A Promised Land, and he was just kind of referencing, like, him, like, walking down the street, and not the street, but, like, somewhere in the White House, and, like, there's Secret Service, like, close behind, and I'm, like, thinking about the fact that, like, when you're the president, like, you literally just have Secret Service, like, next to you at all times.
Yep.
Forever, even after Secret Service is around. And I just wonder, do you think they just get comfortable, like, farting around them and burping around them? I mean, you'd have to, right?
I mean, yeah, I would assume it would, be the same, like, level of comfort as, like, with your, like, life partner, because, like, you're literally, like, around, I mean, even more so, because, like, your life partner goes to work sometimes, like, Secret Service work is with you, so.
And I was just thinking, like, all the embarrassing things you do, like, when you're alone. Mm-hmm. Like, when you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I kind of gotta, like, pick my nose a little, or I fart and it smells bad, or I burp, or whatever. And, like, you're the president. Are you just sitting, like, at your desk in the Oval Office, like, writing all this shit, just, like, like, going on? Like, but the Secret Service, I don't know. That's just something I thought about. And I was just thinking about, like, all the things you do that you're like, God, I'm so glad no one saw that. And how, like, for 4 to 8 years of being a president, like, everything you do is seen by someone, probably.
Well, I remember in Michelle Obama's book, she mentioned, I can't remember what it was. I think it was 4th of July fireworks, maybe? You might know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But her and the girls snuck out of the White House to go watch because they just wanted that moment, like, alone. So they, like, snuck away from Secret Service. And it's like, you literally have to, like, plan to, like, sneak away from these people who are, like, watching you. And like you said, like, even after you're the president, like, they're still,
like, around. Like, they still.
Yeah,
because I actually just saw her on Jimmy Fallon. It was, like, a repeat that it showed on Thursday, and she was saying how, like, like, now that, he's done, like, we go on bike rides, but there's Secret Service still kind of, like, following us around. But I was just thinking, and Michelle Obama talked a lot about that, like, different interviews of her being like, I couldn't even, like, roll my window down for 8 years, like, when I'm driving, like, all this stuff. But I guess I never thought to just, like, in your house, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're just sitting there, and it's literally every single moment, and it's like, whew, that's a lot. But that was my random thought of the week. I have a lot of these. You can ask Jaclyn. A lot of, where the hell did that come from? So if this is a segment you like, let me know, and I can keep doing this.
Also, just to have one last lighthearted thing before we get into today's episode, I saw a tweet this week that was like, if you had to get rid of which type of fry, which type would you get rid of? So, of course, I sent it to Courtney and Tiffany, and we had, like, this really long, in-depth conversation about types of fries, and I'm like, of course we did. Mm-hmm. So, you guys let us know. The options were
classic, crinkle, curly, and waffle.
Yes. So, you guys let us know which one you would get rid of. I said crinkle because crinkle can either be really good or just really meh, but I feel like the others are, like, on point all the time, so I went with crinkle.
I went with curly only because I don't eat curly fries a lot. Like, I really only eat curly fries, like, if I go to Arby's. So I was like, I think I would miss it the least.
Yeah.
Kevin also said crinkle, but then I was like, I said curly, and he was like, honestly, I was between the two. Like, I could get rid of either. Like, they were kind of the same.
The same, yeah. So let us know what type of fries you guys would get rid of. So,
yes.
So today, this was a this was a request from our dear friend Forrest, who is Tiffany's husband, but also our friend. Don't want to just classify him as Tiffany's husband, but he watched this movie about this band and basically was like, "Look, this shit is crazy, and y'all need to cover it." And that was quite a while ago because we get around to our friends' requests later than the rest of our listeners. Sorry, guys. So we're finally getting around to it. So this is about the band called Mayhem.
Which I also had an idea, too, because that movie is on Hulu. And if you guys want, as a Patreon bonus, I will force Jaclyn to watch it with me. And we will take notes and give, like, a review on Patreon. If that's something you want, let us know.
Yes.
And we'll do it.
Definitely. I'm on board with
I'm sure it's wild.
I'm sure it is. We did not watch it for research because I did read that they took some liberty with things, so we wanted to make sure that we were providing the most accurate information, that we didn't get confused with what actually happened and with what the movie showed, but I would be interested in watching the movie. So,
yes.
A lot of sources for this episode. So I watched the documentary called Pure Fucking Mayhem. There were a couple of Louder Sound articles, a BuzzFeed article, a Kerrang article, Euronews, Daily Hive, a man who will come up later. His name is Varg Vikernes, but we read his blog, and you'll see why that's relevant. And we did also look at Wikipedia because this takes place in Norway, and so a lot of the primary sources are in a different language. So Wikipedia had a lot of those sources listed, but they're not translated. So hopefully Wikipedia is accurate. Most of what was on there we did find in other sources, but there's a few little tidbits here and there filled out from Wikipedia that we couldn't find elsewhere because we couldn't translate it. So just take it for what it's worth.
Do you want to mention the book?
Oh yeah, what's the name of that book? I forgot I read that fucking book.
Lords of Chaos.
Yeah, also... So I also read the book called Lords of Chaos, The Bloody Rise of the Satanic Metal Underground by, I'm really sorry, I'm going to mess up this name, Michael Moynihan and Didrik Suderland. So, and that is a 3-part series all about black metal, if you guys are interested. That was the only book that really heavily covered the Mayhem band specifically. But yes, we did pay $10 for that book, so we've got to make sure and include that.
Gotta make sure to do that. But yeah, so it is hard when a lot of these sources are in a different language, and I'm sorry guys, we do not have time to learn that language to get more research.
If you guys would like that, you can go on over to patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes, and if Courtney and I are ever able to quit our jobs, we'll have time to translate all these sources. So
yeah, let me tell you guys, if you get our Patreon up, if you get us making some money, I will do that for you. Because I'll have more time.
Everyone's like, nah, we don't care that much.
No, we don't want to hear you full time, Courtney. Please, no.
So before we get started, I do want to give a trigger warning for suicide and self-harm in this episode. So if that's something that is upsetting to you, feel free to skip or just know that that is going to be covered. So in 1984, a group of friends in Norway decided to start a heavy metal band. They were heavily influenced by the new wave of British heavy metal, specifically the band Venom. So Venom had a song called Mayhem with Mercy, so this group of friends decided that their band would be called Mayhem. And they also decided to take stage names like Venom had done. So the bassist, Jorn Stubberud, and I did look up these pronunciations, also watched the documentary, so I'm trying my best. It's mostly right, but my American mouth may not say them exactly correctly, but I'm trying.
That's how I felt last week with those
yes.
Polish names where I'm like, I'm trying, but my mouth just can't do it.
Yes. So Jorn Stubberud used the name Necrobutcher. The guitarist Oystein Arseth used the name Euronymous, which meant Prince of Death. And the drummer Kjetil Monheim just went by his last name, Monheim. And this group...
sorry, I was going to say a lot of people in this have, like, stage names, you know, that are pretty crazy. And I feel like we need to come up with some.
Oh, yes.
Like, we
Yes.
need some. I don't have any at the top of my head, but if you guys have a stage name in mind for us, like, let us know, because
Yes.
they get crazy, and I think we need, like, a really, really cool one. So
I'm on board with stage names. Send us your suggestions, guys.
yes, comment on the Instagram post, email us. We'll tell you at the end where you can find us. Just keep listening.
You guys know. So the group wanted to explore like really dark and aggressive music. And at the time, Norway didn't really have this like black metal scene. So Mayhem would be one of the first bands to bring that genre to light there. So regarding the difference between the established death metal and the new black metal, a Daily Hive article said, while death metal albums were usually accompanied by high production values and a polished band image, black metal sought to be more raw and primal sounding. So just to give you kind of an idea of the difference between those two sounds. So Mayhem said that they wanted to take the music genre to the extreme. Again, they were influenced by bands such as, of course, Venom, Slayer, and Celtic Frost. And the three men actually learned to play their instruments while they were rehearsing. So their sound quality obviously improved over time as they became more proficient with their instruments. So they were kind of learning as they went along.
Like us in this podcast.
Exactly. Hopefully we've improved. They were interested in satanic and goth expression, including vampires, and so they decided to use these themes as symbols for like the theatrical part of their music. And the group said that these interests really evolved organically, so it wasn't like officially decided on. They were just all interested in it, and it just kind of became their thing. And theatrical components would play a big role in the black metal genre, as band members would perform more than just the music and would often include lighting and props to make their shows like even more eerie and scary. And black metal groups would often use corpse paint and blood on stage. So after practicing for a few months, Mayhem released a demo tape called Pure Fucking Armageddon, which was traded around the underground metal network. So again, heavy metal was new to Norway, so there wasn't really a place for it yet. So this underground metal network had just started, and there was obviously no internet at the time to distribute their music, so they sent letters and cassette tapes around to get their music heard and to make a name for themselves. Which made me think, like, what if that's how podcasts worked? And we're like, oh, we want to do this thing, but the internet's not a thing, so we're just going to record ourselves and mail you guys some tapes to listen to us.
And my thought was, imagine getting this tape of this death metal in the mail, like, and you put it in, like, your thing, and it's just like, pow, 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 pow. Like, I'm assuming death metal sounds like that. I've not listened. I'm not a metal fan. I'm very sorry. Not me. But I'm just, like, wondering, like, if you're like, oh, okay, Pure Fucking Armageddon, I wonder what that is. And then you're just like, oh.
Like, whoa.
Okay, that's a lot.
I did not ask for this. So the Mayhem members also traveled to Germany and England to promote themselves and their music. So at this time, they tried out a few different vocalists, including Billy Messiah and Sven Erik Christensen, who went by Maniac for his stage name. So the group had their first live gig in April of 1986, and it's considered to possibly be the first time black metal was played live on stage. It was a very basic performance at the time and lacked a lot of the theatrical components that are now associated with black metal, like we talked about before. So in 1987, they self-released their second album called Death Crush, and they made each album cover themselves by hand, which is pretty cool. They're like, literally hand drawing each one. Mm-hmm. So the originals of this album are numbered. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is really cool.
Yeah. So Mayhem left the band in 1987, and Jan Axel Blomberg, who went by Hellhammer, took over on the drums. Now, I cannot find this full pronunciation anywhere because he goes by a nickname. So Per Vien Olen, whose nickname was Pella. So I know that part, but I'm not sure if the full name is pronounced correctly. So Pella was a Swedish vocalist from the band Morbid who joined the band at the same time as Hellhammer, and he went by Dead on stage. And this is when things really started to get dark with Mayhem. So the way he auditioned for this band, because I guess he heard about them through them mailing out these tapes, so he's like, oh, I want to be a part of this. So he auditioned by mailing them a tape of himself singing, along with a letter about himself, and a dead mouse.
I mean, that's a way to make a statement.
That, for sure. That's how you get noticed in an audition, guys.
I'm not going to advise
you're
that. I don't know if that's good attention. You might get a restraining order, but maybe for this, like, black metal, perfect. Spot on, 10 out of 10.
Yeah, apparently it worked. So Hellhammer, Dead, and Euronymous all moved in together. And we are going to try to stick to using the same name for each person because the sources get a little bit confusing because sometimes they'll use their actual name and sometimes they use their stage name. So we're going to try to keep the same name for the whole episode to avoid confusion because there's a lot of people involved.
And their stage names are a little easier to pronounce for our American mouths.
So Hellhammer, Dead, and Euronymous moved in together, and the other band members started to realize that Dead was very odd and had like a really dark sense of humor. Apparently his spleen ruptured when he was 10 years old, and this was possibly due to an ice skating accident, or possibly due to being beaten up by bullies, according to his brother. So I don't know what it was. His brother claims that Dead used the ice skating story because he didn't want to say that he was beaten up, which I understand. But who knows which it was.
He's like, I fell during an ice skating accident and I got beat up. They pushed me over while I was ice skating. Like,
and it's also like, if you did make that up to avoid saying that you were beaten up by bullies, like you chose an ice skating accident.
Yeah.
Like that's the most like hardcore thing you can come up with. I don't know. But he was very severely injured and he was declared dead at the hospital before being revived. But after this incident, he was just really obsessed with this like place beyond life. And so he talked about it like all of the time. You know, it was in all of his lyrics. Like he just really obsessed over it after that incident. So Dead was depressed and he left dead birds under his bed because he wanted to smell death. He often had visions about the afterlife, and he hated cats and would try to kill stray cats that showed up at his house by stabbing them.
That is very rude. Excuse me?
Yeah.
Cats are
very
wonderful.
Rude.
Cats are the best. I'm offended.
They're just hanging out, having a good time. They probably want the dead birds under your bed. I mean, that's probably why they're hanging out.
Honestly, they're probably like, you got some food? Oh, okay. It's that kind of party.
Okay.
All right.
But it's not confirmed if he ever actually killed them, because, I mean, like, cats are quick, so I imagine trying to stab a cat would be difficult, but...
Yeah.
Before a performance, he would also bury his stage clothes in the dirt for several days so that he would smell like death on stage.
I bet those, like, places, I'm assuming they're pretty small venues where they're playing, but I'm like, I bet it stunk so bad.
Oh, so bad.
Oh, I'd rather come home smelling like smoke than that.
And to make matters worse, or better, depending on who you are, he also collected dead animals and would carry them in plastic bags to smell them on stage during concert because he felt that really helped him to, like, embrace this, like, death persona that he had going on.
Cool.
So at least during one show, possibly others, it's kind of unclear, Dead crushed a bottle on stage and used it to cut his wrist in the middle of a song and then leaned over the audience so he would bleed all over them. Again, kind of rude.
I mean, can I sign a waiver first?
I don't know what's in your blood. Can I get some, like, results before we, like,
can we
move
get,
forward
like,
with
like a
this?
test here?
So the band also put pigs' heads on stakes and had them on stage during their performance and would later throw the pig heads into the audience. And in interviews, Dead talked about his desire to conduct an animal sacrifice on stage.
I do want to say, though, that is one memorable concert. Like, if I'm coming home...
You'll never forget that.
If I'm coming home in, like, a person's blood, a pig's blood, I got smacked in the face with a pig's head, like, I'm not forgetting that. That sounds wild. Like, if I was, like, on, like, mushrooms or something, that'd be crazy.
And especially in the times of COVID where no one's been to a concert in a year, you're like, I mean, maybe this doesn't sound so bad. You know?
I know, I'm sitting here like, I mean, maybe. I'll bring my rain jacket. I don't know. Sounds like a good time.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so things are about to get sad, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, On April 8th, 1991, Euronymous returned to the home he shared with Dead and Hellhammer and found the door locked. And they only had one key, so he had to enter through a window, and the only window that was open was in Dead's room. So Euronymous found Dead's body inside. He had written a suicide note before cutting his wrist and his throat, and he then bled all over the house before shooting himself in the head. And his suicide note included, "Sorry for all the blood." So he was very, I don't even know the right word for that.
Yeah.
And as things get weirder with Mayhem, always, Euronymous did not immediately call the police. Instead, what he did was he went to the store to buy a camera. And then he came home and he arranged Dead's body with other objects, including the knife and the shotgun, and took photos of him. So he then called Necrobutcher, who told him to delete the photos before he calls him again. And Necrobutcher's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
So Euronymous then took pieces of Dead's skull and would wear one on a necklace after this, and he also gave away pieces of Dead's skull to friends throughout the years, and that is confirmed by multiple sources that, this happened. And there were rumors that Euronymous had actually killed Dead, and although those rumors weren't true, he wouldn't refute them publicly because he thought it would bring more attention to the band if people thought one of the members killed another one. So he's like, I'm just going to let that rumor go because I want people to think that. Okay.
Yeah, kind of odd. Hellhammer claims that Euronymous cooked a piece of Dead's brain in a soup and ate it so he could call himself a cannibal. But also a lot of people say this didn't really happen. It's kind of just another story.
Yeah.
Hellhammer was also quoted speaking about Euronymous' plans for Dead's body and said he thought about sawing off his arm and putting it under a glass display case, but he figured it wouldn't be very smart because then the police would ask where his arm was, which, true.
Police would probably wonder that. That is for sure because, I mean, he was a very odd fellow. Maybe he did cut off his own arm before killing himself, but then, where did he put it? So...
Yeah, and I know in the U.S., I don't know about Norway, but I know it is a crime to tamper with, a dead body. Is a crime. So you could probably be charged for that.
Probably don't do that.
Yeah. And Euronymous claimed that Dead killed himself because he believed in the true dark nature of black metal, but the new younger kids, they just weren't serious enough, and it was more fun than violent. Dead was 21, by the way. So
yeah. All these younger kids,
Yeah. Not that young.
Yeah.
So Euronymous said Dead died for this cause, and now I have declared war. I'm angry, but at the same time, I have to admit that it was interesting to examine a human brain in rigor mortis. Death to false black metal or death metal. Also to the trendy hardcore people. So he's up in arms.
Yes, Euronymous is an interesting fellow.
So Hellhammer said Dead had been depressed for a long time, and that was the real reason for his suicide, not because of less serious people in the music scene, which sounds more accurate.
Probably. I'm sure depression had a lot more to do with it than, I like this, super hardcore aspect of this music that other people don't like, so I'm going to kill myself and bring it back. But then I'm not going to be here to enjoy it. So.
And in 2016, a piece of Dead's skull went up for sale on Serial Killers Inc. and sold for $3,500. So, weird.
Yeah.
And one of the photos Euronymous took of Dead's body would later be used as the cover on the album Dawn of the Black Hearts. So
it's obviously very graphic. Of course, I looked at it because that's who Courtney and I are as people. We will not post it, obviously, but it's out there if you have I don't want to say desire, because it's not really a desire, it's just a morbid fascination. So
yeah, it's one of those curiosity things where you build it up so much in your head, and then you're like, I need to see it.
Yeah,
I just have to And Necrobutcher decided to step away from the band after Dead's death, and Occultus then took over bass and vocals. This didn't last long, as Occultus and Euronymous started getting into arguments, and Occultus left after Euronymous wrote him a death threat, which, don't blame you there.
I'd probably leave too. If Courtney wrote me a death threat, I will be off this podcast. Sorry, guys.
How dare you say that about me? So Euronymous was clearly unfazed by Dead's death and started a record label called Death Like Silence Productions and released an album from the band Merciless. So he also wanted to re-release Mayhem's album Death Crush, but he needed more money first. So he decided to open a record shop in Oslo to earn more money to produce these new albums. And he called his shop Helvete, which is the Norse word for hell. And he was upset about having to sell this trendy metal music, but he decided it was okay. He could go sell this fluffy music to these trendy people to make money to produce the evil albums that he really wanted to produce. So he said he still wanted his shop to have a black metal feel, and he even contemplated having the store in complete darkness so customers would have to carry around torches to look at the albums. And I can just imagine his insurance company being like, please don't. Please, we will not cover this.
That's a fire hazard.
We will not cover this. I don't trust your people. Did not catch this on fire.
No.
So Euronymous would dress in all black with his corpse paint while working at the shop to make sure he really represented the black metal persona. But interestingly, he was also really into electronic music, and he would introduce customers he liked to some of his favorite albums. So he has a very wide taste in music here.
Yes.
And unlike most black metal band members, Euronymous was not a nationalist or right-wing enthusiast. Instead, he referred to himself as a communist. Which I don't know if that's much better. I don't know.
One extreme or the other. There's a middle ground, guys.
So more Norwegian bands were making the shift from metal to black metal, and there were several black metal bands in Norway by the early 90s. And many of them were in contact with Euronymous and planned to produce their albums with Death Like Silence Productions. And Euronymous would refer to this group of bands as the Norwegian Black Circle. One of these bands was a one-man band named Burzum, led by Varg Vikernes. So Varg visited with Euronymous frequently to discuss the details of his album, and they became friends. And Euronymous was a really big fan of his work and felt that he truly embodied the evil nature of black metal and that his sound was distinct from the other bands in the scene. So Varg was a devil worshiper and a Nazi sympathizer. Again, not a good look.
Nope.
So Euronymous began to become more interested in the devil after meeting Varg, and they embraced on a satanic journey together.
That sounds like quite the wild ride.
It really does. Like I said, guys, it just twists, turns.
Whew.
So Varg said Euronymous engaged in anal sex because the Bible said you shall not let sperm fall to the ground, so he believed putting it into someone's ass was the worst thing you could do. And that would be Satanism because it's the opposite of everything Christianity stood for.
Whew, I'm glad you had that sentence because I would have not been able to get through that.
I bet, listener over there, that you did not expect that sentence to go any way it went. So that's that. So I don't even have comments.
Nothing more to say about that.
Yeah. Varg later claimed that Euronymous was just gay and either didn't know it or didn't want to admit it.
Again, probably more likely.
I definitely can see that. Like, oh no, I just do it because Satan, Satanism.
Satan told me to. It's not that I just enjoy men and anal sex. It's because Satan told me to do it. And I gotta stick it to the Christians. Yeah. So that's what this is about.
Whew. And he claimed he found videos of child porn and gay porn in Euronymous' house. As we've discussed in previous episodes, the Church of Satan does not actually worship Satan, and it does not condone non-consensual sex or violence in the name of Satan. They do not, encourage child porn or rape, anything like that. Or,
Yes.
Probably not even just being, super mean to people at all.
Yeah. That's not what the Church of Satan is about. Again, we've talked about it before. I would love to do a full-length episode on it sometime, but there's so much to it. It's going to take a lot of time and research because there's so many different, like, belief systems that fall within Satanism.
Yeah. Kind of like Christianity, where
yep.
it's like the blanket term because so many different little sectors that you have
yep.
to get into. But if you guys would be interested in that, we'd love to do it. It might just be 2 years from now. Around this time, Varg took over as the bassist for Mayhem. And so in addition to his satanic and Nazi views, he also proclaimed to be anti-homosexuality, Judaism, and non-European people. Again, you can like black metal and you don't have to hate everybody. I feel like you're isolating a lot of your possible viewership here.
I think so.
So Varg and Euronymous talked about Satanism and evilness frequently, but eventually decided they needed to do something to be taken seriously in the black metal world and to prove that they were not like the trendy new group who liked softer music. Sir, you put your former band members' suicide pictures on a band album? I think it sets you apart. So
I think you've got that image that you wanted. No one's doubting that.
Yeah. So their plan for doing so would leave a mark on the black metal scene forever. So Norway is known for its many ornate and beautiful all wooden churches, and one of the oldest was the Stave Church. So the members of the Norwegian Black Circle waged war against Christianity and other new religions that were entering Norway. And on June 6, 1992, the Stave Church was set on fire and destroyed. And no one has ever been convicted of this arson, but it's strongly believed that Varg was responsible. On August 1st, the Revheim Church was set on fire, and 21 days later, the Holmenkollen Chapel in Oslo was destroyed as well. So over the next 4 years, 45 to 60 of these wooden churches were destroyed, and it's believed that 1/3 of these fires were started by black metal bands, members, or fans. Which is just really sad. Like, I understand if you don't agree with Christianity, but like just destroying like someone's like church or home or whatever, like don't do it. Like that's not cool. Like
no, there's no reason for that.
There's no reason to like for all this hate. Okay. So at least one firefighter was killed in these fires, and Varg has said he considers Norway's true culture to be that of heathen age, and that the Christian church is responsible for destroying what made Norway beautiful. Varg even used the photo of one of the churches on fire on a Burzum album, and in one interview he said he burned the churches down as publicity for his new album and that he didn't regret it. And Varg was supposedly only responsible for a few of the fires, but was likely the inspiration for many of them. And when speaking about the other men who set these fires, Varg said that they did it to be accepted immaturely in their social group and out of a sense of historic injustice against the church that destroyed the ancestral Scandinavian pagan religions. Good Lord, this man.
If you guys want to hear more from Varg, that was the blog I talked about in the beginning, and you can read all kinds of his thoughts and opinions. He's got a lot of them. They mostly suck.
Like, as I'm, like, reading them out loud, I'm like, I feel crazy.
Right?
Just saying this sentence. So, in January of 1993, Varg gave an interview with a Christian journalist where he stated he knew who was responsible for the church fires. He didn't expect the interview to be on the front page of the news the next day, and he was arrested for the fires the day the interview came out, which you set fire to how much?
Right.
Like, you killed a fireman, like, yeah, if you say you did it, you're probably going to be arrested.
Yeah, well, I didn't expect it to be front page news. I thought that they would just bury it somewhere because it wasn't a big deal. What?
You know how, like, literally we're just setting fire to, like, everything right now? I didn't expect you to, like, you know, put that on the front page that I confess.
No,
like,
never.
So at this time, he was also questioned in the disappearance of an older exchange student from Bergen in 1992, and Varg had referenced this disappearance as a murder in several interviews and implied that he might have been involved. However, police determined that the man had simply run away because he did not want to deal with his family responsibilities. And one reason they... kind of weird.
Okay.
One reason they believed this is because money was withdrawn from his bank account after he disappeared, which I don't really think that necessarily means that he withdrew that money.
Yeah,
And this man's name or anything else about him can't really be found.
Yep.
So we don't really know if the police ever had anything else to confirm if he ran away, or if they're like, meh, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, it was very weird because a lot of sources like reference this person as Varg was questioned in his death, but then like they never list this person's name or say anything else about him, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, what made you think that he just ran away from his family responsibilities other than the fact that money was withdrawn from his account, which again may or may not have been him, especially in the early 90s. Like, you don't have the level of like, you know, security checks and measures that we do now, that even now you can still take someone else's money from a bank account. But especially then, like, is that your only thing to go off of? I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they found the guy, maybe they have more info, but we can't tell you that, but it's very suspicious.
Yes, definitely. So the city of Oslo and some of the church's insurance companies took Varg to court over the damages to the churches, which amounted to $40 million in US dollars, but they only asked for around $5 million. Varg still refused, so he went to court again, and his attorney claimed that he was wrongly convicted of these arsons. However, he was found guilty and ordered to pay what was the equivalent of $1 million US dollars, with a 12% interest rate on the money owed until he paid it off. So that's a lot of money.
So that is a lot of money, and as we've mentioned many times before in many different arson episodes, like, arsonists are hard to catch.
Yep.
So I really don't ever see him get, like, after you confess, they're like, nah, you're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to discover an arson when you go on a front page news article and claim you know who did it. That helps.
Yeah, definitely.
So Burzum's second album was released in early 1993, and it was around this time that bad blood developed between Varg and Euronymous. So Euronymous was also in conflict with other Swedish members of the black metal scene, so it really started this rivalry between Norway black metal and Swedish black metal. And because of the media attention and the negative association with black metal following the fires, Euronymous closed down his record shop Helvete at this time. So his parents had financially supported the opening of the shop, and they strongly encouraged him to close it. So Varg publicly made fun of Euronymous for this, since he was like such a prominent member of this evil and satanic black metal scene, but he closed his record shop because his parents told him to. So, like, in several articles and on his blog, Varg makes fun of Euronymous for this. So, okay. So on August 10th, 1993, Euronymous' body was found on the staircase of his apartment building, and he had been stabbed to death. So the police initially investigated members of the Swedish black metal scene because of their recent disagreements with Euronymous. They interviewed 16-year-old Isla Rollis Angel, who was very into black metal and had lived with Euronymous for a short time. And she told them that she didn't think the Swedish members were involved, and she believed she knew who killed Euronymous, but she was afraid to say so because she feared for her own safety. She did say that Euronymous would not have let the Swedish members into his apartment building, so it had to be someone he was close to. And police had heard from others about the rivalry between Euronymous and Varg was arrested for Euronymous' murder on August 19th, 1993. So Euronymous owed Varg royalties from his first two albums, but Death Like Silence Productions was not doing well financially, and Euronymous never paid. So when asked about why no one liked Euronymous, Varg said that he was using all of their money and didn't pay them what he owed them. He said he also liked to talk about all the church fires and the things, quote, they were doing as part of the Black Circle, but that he wasn't actually involved in any of those crimes. So he's a poser. He's pretending to be a part of this scene that he's really not, according to Varg. But Varg claimed that he killed Euronymous in self-defense. So Varg says that a mutual friend told him Euronymous was planning on killing him, so he drove to his apartment at 3 a.m. to confront him. Now keep in mind, Varg was hundreds of miles away, so this was a 7-hour drive to his apartment to confront someone who said he was going to kill him. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's my thing is, I'm like, if someone's like, I'm going to kill you, I'm like, I'm going to stay over here.
Yeah, I'm not going to come.
I'm not going to confront you.
Especially when I'm this far away.
Yeah.
So he says that he asked him what the fuck he was thinking when he opened the door, and Euronymous kicked him in the chest and then tried to run into the kitchen for a knife. according to Varg. I don't know how he knew that. So Varg then reached for his own knife, because Euronymous was going to get a knife, so he had to defend himself, and then he stabbed Euronymous. Varg says that Euronymous then tried to go into Dead's bedroom because the shotgun was in there. Again, there's a lot of assumptions on Varg's part.
Yeah.
So he chased him out of the apartment with the knife and stabbed him again. And Varg said in an interview, quote, "The point is that it doesn't matter if we planned it all or not, because what happened is that he attacked me out of fear, and that makes it not first-degree murder because he attacked me."
Okay. You really planned this out.
I'm a little confused because you drove to his house to confront him about him wanting to kill you, and after he kicked you, you murdered him. Okay. There's a...
Yeah.
No.
And also, like, I'm not really so sure about the whole, like, if he tries to claim, like, self-defense, because it's like, you put yourself,
yes.
You went to seek out, like, you could have run away, but you kept going after him in his own house.
Yes.
So, like, yeah, if someone's, like, running into my house being like, how dare you say that, da-da-da, like, yeah, I'm probably gonna get a knife or something to, like, get you out of my house.
Yeah. And Varg also found it humorous that neighbors reported hearing a woman screaming for help when Euronymous ran out of his apartment screaming for help. So Varg just thought this was so funny that people said it was a woman screaming. The news reported that Euronymous was stabbed 23 or 24 times, but Varg said he only stabbed him 4 or 5 times, again in self-defense, to a person who does not have a weapon.
Yeah.
You think he's going to get a weapon, but he does not have a weapon. So Varg said the first stab was to the chest, and then he started running away, so he had to stab them in the back.
No.
Again, this self-defense claim is not making much sense to me.
You don't have to do that. If someone's attacking you and you stab them in the chest and they run away, you run the other way.
That's the end of that self-defense. You defended
that's how that
yourself.
Works. You defended. He ran.
Yep. So Varg said he had to keep running to keep up with Euronymous, and that Euronymous broke a lamp in the stairwell and fell on it, which resulted in a lot of cuts on his back that were attributed to knife wounds.
I've cut myself with, like, glass or whatever. It is not as deep as a knife wound.
They look a little different. He said he finally stabbed Euronymous in the head, and that's when he died. So this guy has now been stabbed around 4 times. He has broken a lamp, he has fallen down the stairs, he's laying in glass. He's no longer a threat to you, and now you stabbed him in the head. And Varg said the knife was embedded so deeply that he had to pry it out of his head by holding his body down with his foot.
If it's self-defense, just leave it.
Right? What? And Euronymous was 25 years old at the time of his death, which is just so crazy to me that all of these people are so young, because it just blows my mind.
Yeah, like, they're younger than us at this point, which is weird.
So Varg initially had an alibi because he and a friend, Snor Roosh, had rented a movie that night, but it was soon discovered that Snor actually drove the 7 hours with Varg to Oslo that night while the video played in their apartment. So they had chosen a movie that they had already seen so they would know the details if they were questioned about it later. They also tried to leave an ATM card with a friend to withdraw money to show that Varg didn't leave town that night, but they left the wrong card, so the friend wasn't able to do that. But they did clearly have a plan for making sure they had an alibi while they were in Oslo.
Feels a little first degree to me.
A little bit. So Snor said that he drove and Varg rode in the back under some clothes so that he wouldn't be seen because he was just too famous to drive through the area without being recognized.
Okay.
Varg thinks very highly of himself.
Yep.
So Varg also had contracts signed by both him and Euronymous on him at the time of his murder. So this contract would allow Varg to continue receiving money through the production company without going through Euronymous. And Varg claimed that he only brought this signed contract to Euronymous so that he wouldn't have to see or talk to him again. But Snor said it was part of their plan to make it seem like Varg and Euronymous were on good terms before his death, because he had this contract that they had just signed together, so clearly everything is fine. He couldn't have killed him.
My goodness. So, after their arrest, Snor was the one who confessed and told the police that it was premeditated and about their plans to have an alibi in place. Varg denies the version of events and stuck with his self-defense story. Although he does claim to be proud of the fact that he saved the world from another homosexual communist.
Okay.
So, Snorre was known to have several mental health problems and had spent time in a psychiatric hospital before, so it's important to note that he may be unreliable in relaying what happened the night of the murder and the events that led up to it. So that is kind of important to include, since this is very he said in this story.
Clearly it wasn't self-defense, we know that much, but all of the details about making sure that they had the alibi set up and all of that, that's just coming from Snorre, so may or may not be accurate.
Varg Vikernes was only 21 years old when he received a prison sentence of 21 years, which is the maximum allowable sentence in Norway for the murder of Euronymous and 3 church arsons. His accomplice, Snorre, received 8 years in prison for his role in the murder. So Necrobutcher had left the band after Dead's death and was replaced by Varg, and he still had some hard feelings with Euronymous about after how he treated Dead's death, which wasn't really great.
Yeah.
So Necrobutcher had actually been planning on killing Euronymous himself the day he was murdered. So, all right. When he read the news that morning, he immediately went home to get rid of his drugs and weapons because he knew the police would suspect him. But it didn't take long for the police to build a case against Varg, so Necrobutcher was never really a suspect. But how weird that you're like, you know what? I was planning that.
Like, oh, I was going to do that myself, and he beat me to it. Okay, great. What?
All right.
No.
In 1994, Hellhammer, Maniac, and Necrobutcher reformed Mayhem with a new guitarist, Rune Eriksson, who went by Blasphemer, which I think I like that one the best. Anyway.
I mean, that's a good name.
So they released a new album in 1997 and started touring. They were at the center of controversy again when their new merchandise featured swastikas and other Nazi symbols, and assault charges were filed against the band in 2003 when an audience member at a show was hospitalized with a skull fracture after the band tossed a sheep's head off stage.
They're just continuing to do the thing, guys.
Yeah. The charges were dropped as the injury was found to be accidental. So Mayhem continues to tour and release albums today, but several band members have rotated out throughout the years. And Varg was released from prison in May 2009 after serving 15 years of his 21-year sentence. In his blog written during this time in prison, we're not really sure if he had internet access or if he hand wrote it and gave it to someone else to publish online. But in that blog, Varg does say that he didn't kill Euronymous because he owed him money, because he clearly wouldn't get money from him if he was dead. He also discusses how he never intended to kill Euronymous, so he shouldn't have been charged with first-degree murder. He said when Euronymous was running away, that might have been considered involuntary manslaughter instead of self-defense, but it was never first-degree murder.
Okay.
So, alrighty. He goes on to say that the only Christian healer in Norway was on his jury, as well as several Freemasons, so clearly he didn't have a fair trial.
And this is all super, super condensed. Again, if you guys want to go read his entire blog, he has lots of thoughts and opinions about everything, if you're interested, but we just covered the highlights here.
Doesn't he have a YouTube channel also where he talks?
I don't know, maybe. I didn't find that one.
Maybe not. I thought I saw somewhere that he also kind of vlogs maybe. No.
I mean, it's very possible. I would not be surprised.
So after being released from prison, Varg moved to France with his wife and 3 children. We're not sure when he got married and had children. Don't know when that happened. But he did continue releasing albums under the band Burzum. And in 2013, 40-year-old Varg and his wife Marie Chachette were arrested as suspects in planning a large-scale terrorist attack. So Varg had been sent a manifesto by Anders Behring Breivik. So Breivik was a far-right terrorist who murdered 77 people in July of 2011 in an Oslo bombing and the Utøya massacre. So, not great.
Nope.
Maybe don't associate yourself with those people.
Probably not a good plan.
So Varg received the manifesto before Breivik committed these murders, and he did criticize Breivik on his blog, but only for killing more innocent Norwegians instead of Muslims.
That's what you took away from that incident there, Varg? That's what you have an issue with?
Yeah, not great. Not great.
Nope.
Varg and Marie's arrest were prompted by Marie purchasing 4 rifles. So that's a lot of rifles.
Yep.
This combined with Varg's previous murder sentence, his knowledge of Brevich's crimes before they happened, and racial hate just spewed all over his blog, those led to his arrest. And the charges were ultimately dropped because Marie had a permit for the rifles and they didn't have anything else to connect them to suspicious terrorist attacks. And Varg was arrested for inciting racial hatred against Jews and Muslims on his blog, though, because, not a good look.
No.
Why do we gotta hate so many people? You want to, do your Satanist thing? Cool, have fun. Let them do their, other things. Let them do what they want.
And I wonder, I don't know, listeners, let us know if you guys know, is this, a charge, is this a legal crime in the United States as well? Because I got a lot of people's Facebook pages that I could send right on over because I see
true.
this a lot. And I'm is this just a Norwegian thing or is this everywhere? Is this they only charged him with that because they couldn't get him on something else and they wanted to get him on something? I don't know, but...
Yeah, because, I don't know. That's a good law if that's the case.
Right?
He was convicted and sentenced to 6 months probation and ordered to pay a fine. Varg released his final album Under Burzum in March of 2020. And in 2021, Mayhem was inducted into the Rockham Hall of Fame, and they're the only black metal band to receive this honor.
Which is pretty crazy.
So that is just the twist and turn story of the Mayhem band and the death of Euronymous and the death of Dead, and all that just kind of played up to it. The church burnings, all the crimes that are listed in here. That is that story.
That was quite the wild ride to research and write and talk about, and hopefully you guys learned something because Courtney and I knew nothing about this until Forrest brought it to our attention. So very interesting. Lots of crimes, lots of crazy just happenings and, and still continuing until recently with this same group of people, the ones that made it out alive. So yeah, wow. Let us know if you guys have heard of this or... anything about the Norwegian black metal scene because I feel like I know a lot about it now.
Yeah, and again, if you want us to watch that movie and give a review, give our thoughts, give our opinions, talk about the differences they take, movie versus the case, whatever, let us know and we can do that on Patreon because that'd be fun.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like an interesting time for sure. So Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
Okay, so for my perk of the week, I am going to kind of keep it on topic-ish.
You started a black metal band.
I did, guys. Go find me. My stage name is not determined yet because you're going to tell me.
This whole episode was just an announcement that Courtney and I are stopping the podcast and doing a black metal band instead. So go follow us.
So look for your mixtapes in the mail. So, no, but my perk of the week, weeks, months, I don't know. I've been obsessed with an artist called Phoebe Bridgers. Have you heard of her?
No.
So her new album, new-ish, it came out last year, Punisher. I've been obsessed with it since I listened to it. I don't listen to music too much. I'm usually listening to podcasts and stuff like that. But it's gotten to the point now where anytime I turn music on, it's just that album. It's such a good album. It's not very happy music. Don't go in thinking you're gonna feel great. It's not super depressing, but it is slower music, stuff like that. But she is just so good, and I've been obsessed. I love all her music. She's hilarious on Instagram and Twitter. She's always just posting crazy stuff. But yeah, so that's been my perk of the week, many weeks, is that album is just incredible. So everyone should go listen to it because it's awesome.
That's awesome. I will definitely have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, she has a beautiful voice. Even Elton John said it was a great album. So she had an
I mean,
interview with him because it was right before the Grammys, and he was like, if you don't win a Grammy, I'm going to punch someone. And of course, she didn't win a Grammy. So I'm like, Elton John, I'm waiting for you to punch someone.
Where's that punch? That's quite the endorsement, though. I mean, good for her.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so that is my perk of the week. Jaclyn, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that yesterday, Andrew and I planted our garden.
Nice.
So we're very excited. Yes, it was a lot of money to get it all set up and going, so hopefully we get something from it. But, so yeah, we have 4 raised garden beds that are full of herbs, and we have squash and spinach and peppers, tomatoes, eggplant, I don't know, a whole bunch of veggies. Mm-hmm. We got some blackberries, blueberries, strawberries. We have no idea what we're doing. We don't know what's going to grow and what's not, but, I thought we should, ease into it and see. And Andrew's like, no, we're going to go all in and just see what happens. I'm like, okay. So that's what we did. So we went to a local nursery yesterday and got all the plants, got everything planted. Also got some flowers, so got those out in my front flower bed. And we realized we didn't have enough flowers, so we're going to go back either today or next weekend and get more flowers. And
nice.
Hopefully I'm not talking next week or in 2 weeks about how everything's dead. Hopefully we can have a fruitful harvest from this garden. But we are very excited because we have wanted to have a garden for a long time, and this is the first house that we've owned that we really felt like making the investment of putting all this in. So just stay tuned. I'm sure there'll be more updates to come, hopefully good ones.
Yeah, my dad has had a garden every year since I've been alive, basically. So just constantly watched him of some things go and some things don't, and it just depends on the year. Like one year he tried to grow corn, and then a storm came and just toppled it all over, and it was done. And it was like,
that's
all right.
sad.
But yeah, so I'm excited. Usually when my dad has a garden, they get way too many veggies, so I just kind of get to have those. It's always nice. Have some homegrown stuff. But yeah,
I'll be taking some baskets of tomatoes to all my neighbors.
Yeah, my dad he just started making sauce, basically. He would take the seeds out and just start making it, and he's like, all right, this will be spaghetti sauce, this will be pizza sauce, something, and canning them, all that.
So super excited about that. If you guys want to let us know about your gardens or music, or most importantly, send us our stage names, you can do so on Instagram at Caffeinated Crimes Pod, on Twitter at Caff Crimes Pod, that's CAFF Crimes Pod, on Facebook at Caffeinated Crimes Podcast. You can email us at caffeinatedcrimespod@gmail.com if you want Courtney to quit her job so she can learn Norwegian so we can better research these things and pronounce the names better. You can donate to us on patreon.com/caffeinatedcrimes, where we have bonus episodes and other fun goodies, and you guys can watch along this movie with us and we can all talk about it and all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, it'll be fun. And if we get a few good options for band names, I can make an Instagram poll, and we can, officially, get our official band names, our stage names. So
yes, for sure.
We're also still doing our Apple Reviews giveaway. So once we get to 50, we will select someone to get a pin, a sticker, and a $10 gift card to the coffee shop of your choice. Just please be sure to also leave a comment and leave your name, some identifying information so we can find you. So do that because it helps us get seen by more people, and we want to give away free goodies because why not? So yeah, and I think that is it. So in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.